Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game on the Sharp X68000, and that happens to be Knight Arms the Hyblid Framer. So first of all, I have to say, very cool name, and it was developed and published by Arsis Software, and was released in 1989. And it is a shoot 'em up, and a very unique one at that, especially for the year 1989, and one thing I will get out of the way first is that there's barely a story within this game, but then again, it's a shoot 'em up, like, what do you expect? So let's skip over all of that and start talking about the gameplay. So when you first start playing the game, you notice that it looks a lot like Space Harrier, where it's a third-person rail shooter, and then sometimes in the same stage, it'll go to a side-scrolling section. Now this alone is already a very interesting mixture, but the thing on top of this that makes it even more crazier is the fact that you can actually shoot in multiple directions. And I don't just talking about left and right, no, you can actually shoot in the foreground and in the background as well. Yeah, so in the side-scrolling sections, there's many times where you're going to see some enemies going in the background shooting up towards you, and yeah, you just gotta turn yourself around and shoot at them. Yeah, I wasn't expecting a shoot 'em up in 1989 to be doing all this kind of crazy stuff, and you can even turn yourself around in multiple directions within the rail shooting parts too. Now that's pretty much the main gimmick to this game, but I do think the side-scrolling sections are pretty interesting the way how they're designed, where that, unlike most of them, they're not auto-scrolling. Instead, you can freely move around wherever you want. In fact, this game kind of has a bit of exploration going on for it too, where that when you first get to the first stage with the side-scrolling section, you can go back and find some health packs, and they're not going to disappear either, so if there's like a sub-boss that you took a lot of damage from, you can just go back there. So I do think that's actually a pretty cool idea for this type of game, is the fact that it has some exploration involved where you can find some other power-ups. So that pretty much sums up everything that you need to know for basic stuff, since, you know, it's a shoot 'em up, so there really shouldn't be any confusion at all. So now let's get talking about the other things, like the graphics. And the graphics in this game for 1989, they look great. Not only is it a nice, bright, colorful game, but it also is pretty impressive how it looks as good as it does with the multiple different perspectives that the game has. I also like some of the designs in this game, like the main character's mech looks pretty cool. There's a couple enemy designs that are pretty nice looking too, and the bosses have some really huge sprites, and they all look really great. But probably my favorite one has to be this giant robot girl. She looks very similar to an old anime called Ariel. Yeah, it's that one that's based after that light novel that has some amazing artwork. And there's some really nice backgrounds in this game too, so yeah, I really don't have any major complaints about the graphics in this game. I think it all looks really damn good for a Sharp 68,000 game. And now, as for the game's music, I find it to be very heavy and metallic sounding. Yeah, it kinda reminds me of a Genesis game on steroids, and yeah, I think it's pretty good. Definitely very fast-paced sounding, which suits the game perfectly, and yeah, it really goes along good with just shooting up a bunch of shit. But as much as I do like the music in this game, I wouldn't say it's the most memorable ever, and I wouldn't put it on the same level as Star Princess or Aqualis, or, you know, like, really any of the two other games that I've reviewed in the past on this system, but I still think it is a pretty solid OST overall. It just may not be as memorable, but it's still good while you're playing the game. Alright, I just realized this is probably going to be a very short-ass review, so before we get to my overall thoughts, I do want to say one thing right off the bat with this game, is that, holy shit, this game is hard as balls. Now, I know shoot 'em ups in general can be pretty difficult as is, but let me tell you, when I first played this game, I died to the very first boss so many times, and it took me such a long time to actually get through it. And then Stage 2 was actually pretty easy, and then Stage 3 went back to being balls hard again. And after that, it still manages to be hard, so yeah, I guess Stage 2 was the one where they gave you a break. And the thing that's interesting with this game's difficulty is that there are some times where it seems like they are pretty generous with things, and there's other times where they just kick you right in the nuts. So as for the things that are pretty generous of them to do, is that for one, the game has a health bar, and your character can take quite a few hits, and there's a few health packs to pick up, so yeah, they're pretty generous when it comes to the health situation, which is good. Also, there is one power-up that you can pick up where it's this little tiny drone that just flies over you and it shoots along with you as well. So the thing that's good about this drone thing is that even if you die and then continue, you'll always have the drone with you the whole time, which is kinda nice. Also, this game seems like it has unlimited continues, at least I assume it does. I mean, I've continued like a bajillion times and it never gave me an insta game over, so yeah, I'm just gonna assume it has unlimited continues. But now, as for the things that make this game really hard, so the first thing I have to mention is that the power-ups for different shots are limited. Yeah, you usually get about 50 shots, so that means you really have to be careful with them. And the bosses in this game have a crazy amount of health, and it's also hard to know exactly when they're about to die either, so yeah, some of these boss battles feel like they can take like a while just to take them down. And as for dying in this game, now like I said, you can continue as much as you want, but the thing is, when you do continue, there's no checkpoints throughout the level, so if you died at the boss, you gotta redo that level from the very beginning. The levels themselves are not too long, but I do think that trying to get another chance at the boss while having to do the levels over and over again just gets very tedious. And another thing I should mention too about this is that you pretty much do have to beat this game in one sitting, or at least as long as you don't turn the game off, because if you turn off the game and then click continue, then it's going to take you to the very first level, so therefore, yeah, there's no way of like saving your game in this game. Then again, there's not that many stages throughout the game, but still, it's one of those things where it's like as soon as you turn it off, you literally have to start from scratch again. And one last thing about this game that also makes it really hard is that I possibly might have found one of the most annoying enemies I've ever fought in a shoot 'em up. And they happen to be in the first stage too, so yeah, that definitely gives you a very big first impression that this game doesn't fuck around. So it's these red dot enemies, and the thing that makes them really annoying is that they just constantly start ramming into you, and they'll follow you no matter where you go. And normally you'd be thinking, well, why don't you just shoot at them? That just seems to be the obvious answer, but here's the thing. It's easier said than done, because what they do is that they fly around the background, and then they go into the foreground where your character is, and you only have, like, less than a second to react to it, and if you're a microsecond off, then yeah, you're getting hit. So yes, those are the reasons why that this game is pretty damn difficult, while also does give you a decent amount of things that are kind of forgiving. Now let's get into my overall thoughts on this game. Yeah, I'm just telling you right now, I couldn't find this game on eBay, so if you wanted to go out and buy yourself a copy of it, yeah, good luck. So for my overall thoughts is that I find this game to be decent, but definitely not a favorite of mine. And no, it's not because of the difficulty. No, I haven't talked about this yet, but probably my biggest complaint with this game is the frame rate. Yeah, the frame rate is very inconsistent with this game, and I've tried multiple different settings to see like what would work better than others, and yeah, it just seems like no matter what, I can't get it to be consistent enough, or when there's too much shit on the screen, it slows down quite a bit. But when there's not a lot of things on screen, the game goes way too fast to the point that it's kinda hard to control. And I've played quite a few games on the Sharp X68000, and I've never really had this issue until this game, so I'm just gonna write it off and say that, yeah, this game just unfortunately has some frame rate problems. But despite that, though, the game is still very impressive looking, and it does have some really interesting ideas with its style, which I like, especially for 1989, but I would not recommend this game for people that are very casual about shoot-em-ups, because, yeah, you're gonna get your ass kicked a lot. But if you do consider yourself to be good at them, then I would say that it's at least worth trying, just because, like I said, it is very cool and interesting for the time it came out, but unfortunately, the frame rate I just think is the biggest problem. If the game's frame rate was more consistent, I could probably tolerate the game's difficulty more. Even though I don't have a problem with some games being hard as shit, especially for shoot 'em ups, because, you know, a lot of them are really hard. But I just feel like that this game was a bit too ambitious for what it was trying to do, which, like I said, I can appreciate it, but at the same time, it's not an easy one to recommend unless you're just super hardcore into the genre and you just never played it before. So yeah, overall, I would say that Night Arms the Hyblid Framer is that I do kinda like it, but I don't love it. Like, I definitely don't think it's anywhere near as good as some of my favorites on the Genesis or the PC Engine. But there are some interesting things I did find to be appealing about the game, it's just not one I can easily recommend to that many people. So with that being said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.